Hey Vosh, I'm just getting here, but I'm wondering if you have anything to say about the current discourse on Twitter surrounding autism. Oh my god. Why is this so difficult for people? There's an objectively correct answer to all of this, okay? Autism is often quite debilitating, but in the case of stuff like autism, it often feels like inseparable from elements of your personality, you know? Like if you're autistic, it doesn't feel like you're you, but then you have the autism node or whatever, in the same way that sometimes like anxiety or depression can. If you have anxiety or depression, for some people you can feel like normal most of the time, but then every once in a while the depressive or anxious symptoms rear their head and it's like, I wish I could get rid of this, you know? But autism doesn't really work that way. People with autism aren't like normal most of the time, but then like every once in a while they have the autism flare up like it's a cold sore and they're like, wish I could get rid of this. So to autistic people, there's no way to cure them without basically erasing their personality as it is, you know? Maybe there are elements of autistic behavior they would want to get rid of, like, for example, well, there's a ton of stuff, you know, like inability to read social cues or hypersensitivity to noise or stuff like that. And that's fine, but that's not them wanting necessarily to erase the autism holistically. That's them taking issue with some of the more extreme and destructive symptoms of autism. But when you start talking about, like, we should be curing people with autism, this language is inseparable from the language of eugenics, okay? Because you're not talking about getting rid of specific negative conditions that people want to get rid of anymore. You're essentially making these decisions for other groups. If you ask 100 depressed people, do you want us to get rid of your depression magically by snapping our fingers? Most of them will say yes. Almost all of them will say yes. And anxious people, yeah, most of them will say yes. Almost all of them will say yes. If you talk to autistic people, the answers are going to be a lot more complicated because to a lot of them, these feelings, their condition, their framework is inseparable from their personality. What would they be without it? Maybe they'd be better, maybe they'd be worse. They don't know because it's so integrated into their behavior that it's almost impossible to know what, like, for me, I know what I would be like if I didn't have bipolar disorder. You know, I know that because I didn't get it until I was in college, or I didn't get the symptoms till I was in college. Not really. I know what I'd be like, but I've been autistic since like day one, baby. You know, I don't know. I have no idea what I'd be like. Would I be like less wacky? I don't know. Maybe I would be able to tolerate crowds more. I don't know. If the question is like, yeah, would I be less cringe? Probably. Um, if the question is like, should we try to find ways to mitigate the most negative elements of autistic neurodivergence from people, like the things that make you non-functioning in society, then I think that's reasonable, you know? Um, but that's not what people talk about, you know? And also, when this discourse comes up, it's really hard not to notice the seething puritanism of people who say they want to cure autism sometimes. Like they're, I don't know, like they're eugenist commissars trying to perfect the human genome. Like, you know, we will cure you of your this or with that. It feels like it's less humanitarian and more about like, this is the rigid range of acceptable human behavior and you're not in it, buddy. And no autistic person is going to be comfortable with that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? Have all my thoughts been laid bare? Okay, yeah. In essence, there are elements of autism that are that it can be pretty tough to manage, that I think autistic people would like managing or getting rid of. But curing autism is to many people something which is just inextricable from the idea of just eliminating their personality. So, yeah, it's not good. Why not just have constructive conversations about this? Hey, would you agree that some elements of autism are pretty negative? Like, you would do better without them. And then everyone will say, yeah, you know. And it's like, okay, so we agree there are some negative elements. Would it be possible then, maybe we could use, maybe if there was a way to snap your finger and eliminate those elements while preserving maybe the more non-pernicious elements of autism, would that be okay? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't know, sure, I'd be cool with going out in crowds and being able to eat fruit. I'd still be like different in my own ways, but like the worst parts of it would be gotten rid of. It's like, okay, well, what if there was some way to streamline the range of autistic expression in humans so that while there's still a variety in how we behave, the most negative elements are like trimmed down on? Oh, that sounds fine. Like, doesn't that sound fine? You know? I don't know. To me, that sounds fine. Why can't you eat fruit taste? I can't eat a ton of food because of the texture. I like the taste of almost every food. I don't like coconut and pineapple too much, but beyond that, I mean, Brussels sprouts, bananas, apples, pears, I just love all kinds of food. But the texture really fucks me up, so I just can't eat it. Can't turn everything into a smoothie. You don't like coconut? Maybe that's why I'm so eager to find excuses to give it away. Uh Um, will the Coconut Island thing even work on you then? Well, thankfully, I can survive off the sustenance I get from receiving head. So, yeah. TBH, a lot of, quote, autism things are not bad. It's just the people without autism that think they're normal when they're actually super weird. Look, I just think that, look, here's my true and based pilled take, okay? Everyone is autistic now because of the internet, all right? To varying extents. We're all weird and have trouble in some element of social behavior. None of you are perfect, okay? We're all living it, okay? Some people are autistic in ways that maybe affect their life in a more substantive negative way. Maybe some people less so. But we should all be accepting of the things that make us different, okay? And we should be forgiving to ourselves and to other people for behaving in like ways which are somewhat aberrant to like standard behavior, you know? Be accepting of people who defy social standards a bit. As long as they're not mean. Because that's bad. What do you think causes autism? I don't know. And this is one of those things where I'm reminded of what Neil deGrasse Tyson told Ben Shapiro, where this seems like one of those questions where it's almost irresponsible to look into the answer because people will use it for political reasons, you know? Because, like, imagine if some study came out. So, for example, there was a study showing that more trans people are autistic than cis people. So that's actually, like, really interesting. Why is that? Like, really, why is that? I can think of some, like, reasons why, okay? Maybe autism is sometimes a collection of social mannerisms which emerge from a feeling of dissonance between you and your environment, a type of cognitive nonconformity, which also correlates to being transgender. So, in that case, the autism and the gender dysphoria or the being trans, they aren't necessarily the same thing, and neither causes the other. It's just that they both tend to be wrapped together in the same rejection of, you know, standard social experience. Maybe. Also, more autistic people are gay slash bi. I genuinely don't know. Maybe just autism is like being different in any way can just make you autistic because being gay makes you feel like you're different from people. And the autism develops as a kind of social coping mechanism. I have no idea. I do not know. I do not know. But you know that anytime definitive evidence on this is going to be found, people are going to use it as an excuse to invalidate other people. I've seen a lot of people saying, for example, that trans men tend to be autistic, and that means they're not actually trans men. They're actually cis women who think they're trans because their autism makes them uncomfortable with the social expectations of being a cis woman, so they escape it by faking being a trans man. No, this is legit something I've heard from multiple people. No, but this is what I mean. It's always like, yeah, you know? Or they blame some kind of sexual trauma. Oh yeah, that's a decades old one. Also, like, I mean, personally, like, I'm interested scientifically in what the answer to these questions are, but like, honest to God, if I knew a trans person and I could somehow like read their brain and I read it and it said, this person is trans because they're autistic, I don't know. All right. Have fun. Yeah, okay. All right. Whatever. Yeah, you know? Uh I'm interested in the scientific inquiry, but like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, it's just important that political ideologues can't use developing research as an excuse to attack minority groups.